I guess we can just get into it. So my first question that I have for you is, when did you start your website and why?
So I started it, I think about, it's either 3 or 4 years ago now. And so I started my career working in journalism. I worked for Richmond Magazine as a style and dining editor for several years right out of college. I also interned for them. And after working full-time in journalism for a while, I got a little bit burned out. Journalism is traditionally really long hours and really low pay. So I switched to more of a marketing strategy job in my full-time career, and continued freelance writing for Richmond Magazine and for other publications. But when you're a freelance writer, a lot of what you are doing is pitching stories. So you come up with things that you want to write. You ask the magazine if you can write them, if they'll pay you. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. Sometimes you might pitch the idea, and I don't think intentionally, like it comes out a few months later, written by somebody else. So I got a little bit tired of that, and was kind of continuing to move toward a less creative full-time job. So it just kind of, like as I saw all of these people starting blogs, I just kind of thought, hey, I want to see if I can do this, if I can make this work for myself, like a little bit as an outlet, a little bit as a side business, a little bit as marketing myself as kind of like a writing and journalism expert.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
When did it turn into an influencer role?
Funny, that's a good question. It was kind of just an evolution, I think. So I started it, and it really was just to write about things that I like and share them with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably it kind of evolved as influencer marketing evolves. Like I have a lot of friends who jokingly are like, you were an influencer before influencers were a thing, because what I like to do is find things I like and tell other people about them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, it's just kind of become like, as influencer marketing has become a thing, like it's just kind of been something that I've sort of naturally been evolving into.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's happened with like a lot of people, just kind of like turned into it, like
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when did you kind of consider yourself an influencer? Like when did it actually like or get that word into, I guess, into your
Right. It's a great question. Even sometimes now I'm like, am I an influencer? Am I a micro influencer? Am I not an influencer? Like, what am I? But I guess like probably more other people starting to say it is what made me start to think about it. I have other friends who work in marketing and PR. So when they started to come to to come to me and say like, hey, can you help promote this? Like, we're looking to work, or people reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm looking to work with an influencer. I think also maybe another one was like, there was kind of like a milestone moment in my blogging where like I had my first post that kind of went viral. I wrote about, and this was unpaid, I wrote about this new business called the Richmond Wine Station right when it opened. I like went on opening day, and I had this little video of myself pushing a button and wine coming out of a tap. It's like a restaurant that has wine on tap, and that little like it's like a like a little boomerang or something got like over 1 million views.
Wow.
And the blog post got like 12,000 hits. I went there like a week or so, maybe after I had written this post. I ran into like 4 people I knew who were like, I saw your blog post and I'm here to check this place out. So I think it was like, maybe that's one of the first times when I was like, oh, this actually could be powerful, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I definitely had that too when I've like written blogs for internships, and I like it when they like tell me about it and they're like, yeah, I saw your blog and I like went to it. I'm like, oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, that's like the best part, when someone actually listens to the things that you suggest or talk about.
So what are some of your favorite blog topics to write about in?
So my tagline for my blog is Sip, Savor, Style. So, one of the things that I think is a little different about my influencer status or whatever is, a lot of people I think have one niche, right? Like there's like eating bird food and she writes about healthy recipes, or I Heart Veggies who writes about, a vegetarian lifestyle. What I've really focused on for mine is kind of like trying to build my own personal brand as an expert who likes all of these different things. So, I like fashion, I like dining, I like drinking and making cocktails, I like traveling. And I'm kind of trying to build my brand as sort of like me as this style expert across all of those different areas. And, like you want to listen to me because I have really good taste and really good recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes that makes like building the brand a little bit harder because it's not like I just have something that's like Richmond food and you're like, oh, I like Richmond food, I'll follow that. It's a little different. I guess it's more of an influencer brand than maybe some of those other ones.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. What do you look for when collaborating with someone or something of the sort?
So I look for a couple things. First of all, I do look for a fit kind of with my brand, like those things. Like I get a lot of people reaching out to me about music artists, like asking me if I want to come to a concert or interview a band.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not an expert about music. That's not really my niche. So usually I kind of skip those invitations. It is really helpful when there are clear goals and clear expectations. So I think I was talking to you about this girl that I'm finally going to work with. The first time she reached out to me, she was like, hey, do you want to work together? And I said, sure. And she said, okay, do you have any ideas? I want to work with an influencer. And so like, it's helpful for me to know like, what's the budget that the person is working with? What's their goal? What do they want to do? Like, how can I actually help them achieve their goals versus just like them coming to me like, hey, can you make up some ideas?
Yeah. Gotcha. Right. So what kind of challenges do you face when being an influencer, and what keeps you motivated to keep going?
I think the biggest challenge, right, is it's a highly competitive landscape. I mean, if you're in a class about influencer marketing, there are these, crazy huge influencers with millions of followers. And, even like on kind of like the Richmond level that I'm on, I mean, there are lots of other people doing different facets of what I'm doing. So sometimes, it can just get a little daunting. Like, am I doing something that's unique? Like, does it really matter? Does anyone care? But what keeps me going, like I said, is, first of all, like when people take my recommendations, or like also knowing that I've helped a business. Like I had a friend who was in between opening restaurants. And so he was working kind of as a chef he took over the kitchen at this other restaurant called Bell downtown. And he was doing this kind of like Spanish Mexican menu. And on my website, I wrote about this steak that he was serving that was really good. And he told me the next weekend he sold out of steaks. Like, so, when you hear stuff like that, I mean, it is really encouraging. It kind of validates what you're doing. And it's fulfilling to actually feel like you are helping people, improve their sales or get the word out or whatever.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what does a typical work week look like for you?
Well, so like I said, so I have a 9-to-5 job too, which I mean, I think, there are some influencers who are full-time influencers, some who aren't. So for me, I kind of have to squeeze in this other stuff, in between my full-time job. So, I try to have a content calendar. the goal would be every week to be spending some time working on and posting a new post, at least one blog post a week. I try to think about posting on Instagram every day because I've learned if you don't post every day, you lose some of your followers. And so sometimes for me, like that's planning content, like, you know, thinking about like, I've been trying to do a Friday favorites post. So, you know, that can't really just be like something I randomly took a photo of. I need to take some time, think about what that content is, maybe like do a photo shoot. Also like, I guess responding to some of the different people that I'm working and partnering with. I don't do a whole lot of proactive pitching, but you know, like I know other bloggers and influencers who do it as more of a full-time gig say that, you know, they spend a lot of their days pitching. I more work with people who reach out to me. But yeah, so it's kind of a combination of like trying to plan that content calendar, actually writing, editing photos, like thinking about Facebook, thinking about Pinterest, thinking about Instagram, and like, again, just kind of trying to balance all of that with actually having like another job and a real life too.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess also trying to go to, I mean, the other thing I would say about being an influencer is like, part of, I think my reputation is that I'm always out on the town. Like, so to have that be part of your reputation, maybe not right now, like you actually have to go to events. When you're at events, you have to post pictures. When you're at restaurants, you have to post pictures. Like my friends know if they go to dinner with me, like they better not touch their plates unless they ask if I want to take a picture first.
Right.
But then they know if someone sends us appetizers, like if the chef sends out appetizers, it was worth it. So, but yeah, so it's also a lot of like that, like, or trying to go to, you know, networking events or whatever else. Like that's another important part of it. I think that maybe people don't always think about, like, depending on what your like niche is, you have to be out and about, like learning and engaging and finding new content, which that's probably my favorite part of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I have last question. Do you have any tips for someone who wants to start a blog?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think, I mean, first of all, like just, I mean, go for it. Second of all, think about like, what is your, like, what's your goal with the blog? Like, you know, like I have another friend who has a food blog and she doesn't like, I don't think isn't as focused as I am on trying to grow it and trying to get partnerships and all this stuff. And she's like, hey, this is my hobby that I pay for and I'm fine with it. You know, some people build model airplanes, some people play card games. I do my blog and that's fine. I think, you know, thinking about like, again, like if you want to do something that can get followers really quickly, like maybe you should pick a very specific niche and think about like a really easy to understand name, etc. Like just, I think thinking about your goal. Also, the other thing is, I mean, I feel like you are younger than I am. Like for me, one of the hardest parts of starting the blog was like setting it up and like learning WordPress and like learning if something breaks, like trying to figure out how to go in and look at code and like understanding what plugins you need. So like, I think that's a whole other side of it that people don't always think about, but like there's also a million tools online to help you figure all that stuff out. But like, I guess you kind of have to realize, right, like you're the chief content finder, you're the chief content producer, you're your chief salesperson, you're your chief tech support, at least until you get big enough to like outsource some of those things.
Gotcha.
But it's also really fun and really rewarding. So
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Well, those are all the questions I have. I appreciate
cool.